Hello, my beautiful friends. Thank you so much for stopping by. This is Dawn, and this is the second video in the series. The first one is kind of an introduction. Basically, what I'm trying to do is share my story, my experiences with my foster parents who were evangelical, fundamental Christians and started a ministry called Last Days Ministries. And I came to live with them and had some very traumatic experiences. Now, this video, I'm going to talk about the beginning, where I started, my background, so you can have a better understanding of where I'm coming from. So when I get into all the stuff that happened, you have a better understanding of how I handled it. The reason why I want to do this is not because I want to smear anybody's name or make anybody look bad. I'm not bitter. I'm not trying to get back at anybody. I do have some secrets that I am not going to tell because it's not productive. It's not going to help anybody. But it would be embarrassing to my foster parents if I told you. So I'm not going to, because it's irrelevant to the message that I'm trying to get across. So my plan is to talk about the beginning, how I came to need foster parents, how I came to live with them, my experience with them, and what I learned that became toxic for me about myself. These are beliefs that I developed, and how I have healed a lot of what happened. And I think the last part is the most important, because I think a lot of people have had some kind of traumatic experience, maybe not with religious people, parents, or people in your life, but you may have had similar experiences, and this could help you deal with that trauma and heal that trauma. Now, I won't be getting into all the details because I developed a 3-month course helping other people get through their trauma and heal from it. So I don't have the time to pack that into a couple of videos. But I will be going over what I have learned, the tools I use to help me to get better and become more functional, because there's a lot of trauma that has kept me in the past from being functional. So I want to share that especially to help you all, okay? So we're going to start from the beginning. That's the best place to start, right? Okay. Drink 'em if you got 'em. Okay, let's get all cozy, because this is a little bit lengthy, but it's important for you to understand my background, I think. Anyway, if you've heard some of these stories, you can fast forward if you've followed me for a while. When I get into my being with my mom and why I needed foster parents, that's an important part of the story. Okay, so let's get started. At the beginning, I was born. I was born in an Army hospital, Fort Sam Houston, San Antonio, Texas. Yes, indeed, I'm a Texas girl. But it was an Army hospital, so it doesn't count, right? Okay. So anyway, my parents divorced when I was 2. My mother, my aunt, and me, of course, we moved to Los Angeles, California. Now, my mom and my dad and my aunt are all from Missouri. So this was quite an adventure, I'm going to have to say. This is quite an adventure to move to Los Angeles after growing up in the South, in the country, in a farm kind of setting. So quite a difference. Okay, so we get into Los Angeles and things are great. My mom and aunt both meet guys, and they develop a relationship with them. My aunt moved in with her guy. My mom and I moved in with her guy. That became bad. I was 5 years old, and he was abusive. I'll just put it that way. I did not see, because my mother is very protective of me, and I did not see well, actually, I did not see him threaten her or anything like that, but he was very harsh with me and very unkind. And so I could definitely believe that he was being disrespectful and harming my mom. So we had to leave. And after that, I'm about 6 years old, and my mom, well, I should say that my mom decided to start a spiritual journey to find something more to life. She grew up in a very stark Christian childhood too. So her childhood was, her mother was very strict and very religious, and it was very traumatic for her. I would venture to say she probably had some PTSD from it. So we were going to, well, our first that I remember was the Krishna temple, Hare Krishnas. Now, if you're old enough, you probably remember Krishnas in the airport. I don't know if everybody experienced that, or if that was just California, or what that was. But they would be in the airport giving away books for a donation. You had to give them a donation. So it wasn't really giving them away, but that's how they presented it. But they were trying to, raise money for the temple, basically. So yes, it was those Hare Krishnas that's the temple that we went to. So if you can imagine a 6-year-old looking at all of these people dressed in robes, jumping up and down and banging on drums. Some of them had drums. Some of them had those little finger cymbal things, and ting, 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 ting. Maybe I can put up a picture. So they're jumping up and down, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama. I won't bore you, but that was quite a trip. I just stood there and looked at him going, what is going on here? I don't think we went back. I think we just went one time and decided this isn't for us. So my mom then, the next temple I remember going to is Self-Realization Fellowship, SRF. This was started by Paramahansa Yogananda. And he brought Kriya Yoga to America. That's what he's famous for, I guess. So we spent some time there, but we also went to IYI, which is Integral Yoga Institute, and that was started by Sri Swami Satchidananda. So during the 60s and 70s, these yoga masters were coming here to America, bringing yoga to America, because they wanted to, well, basically yoga had been kind of confined to India. So they wanted to share the wisdom and the benefits that yoga can bring to a person. Now you have to understand, yoga has the Yoga Sutras, and that is basically a guideline. This is not thou shalt and thou shalt not. They have what is called the yamas and the niyamas, and these are things that you should do, and these are things that you should not do. But the mindset is, these are guidelines. If you want to live a happy life, this is how you could do it. The teachings are all about love and acceptance of other people, and compassion, and getting the ego under control. Now, at the beginning, I will say that I didn't quite understand. I was 6 years old. My mom decided to become a vegetarian. And this is very, very interesting, because most parents, if they decide to do something, that's it. It's the law. You have to abide by it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. My mom says to me, I'm going to be a vegetarian from now on. You can continue eating meat if that's what you want. What parent does that, right? Leaves it up to me. But there are rules, there are restrictions. She said that she was not going to cook meat in the house. She was not going to buy meat for me. But if I wanted to eat meat and I, was with somebody else, that would be just fine. And she would be fine with it. See, no judgment. She left it up to me to decide what I wanted to do. 6 years old. Okay. So at first I was like, no, I really like my McDonald's hamburgers. I really like them. So that was hard for me. But after spending some time in SRF and IYI, I began to understand. Yes, 7, 8 years old, I could understand why it's important to be a vegetarian while you're following the yoga lifestyle and living that kind of life along with the sutras, following the sutras. I understood that, and if I wanted to grow as a spiritual person, that was a way to do that. So the whole thing is ahimsa is non-violence, and so when you kill an animal, that is violence. So that's why a lot of Indians are vegetarian. They don't eat a lot of meat. There are some that will eat chicken, but they will not eat beef. Okay, so they're just different people following different paths, and they all get along for the most part, except for a few things. But we won't go into that. That's politics. We don't want to do that. But I have to admit that I really embraced the being a vegetarian. It felt like the right thing to do, and I embraced it. And you could not pay me money to eat meat. Just saying. Could not pay me money because I believed it. I felt it. All right. So I really wanted to lay down that I learned a lot about the ego and about meditating and practicing yoga and living in a way that I'm honoring my body and really paying attention to how I treat other people. That is so huge in yoga. Now, I just want to make a little comment that yoga is not Hinduism. They are separate. I don't remember, this doesn't mean that it wasn't there, but I don't remember learning about the gods. In Hinduism, there are a lot of gods and deities, and you have to bring out offerings to these deities and make sure they're happy so that they'll bless your home and so on and so forth. I don't remember learning about deities, and I don't remember seeing pictures or statues or anything. My mom didn't have anything like that I could remember. So yoga really is a separate path. You could just follow yoga, or you could be a Hindu that includes yoga, a Buddhist that includes yoga, or a Christian. If you can get past the whole, this is a weird Asian, some of them think it's of the devil. So, but if you can get past that and you're a Christian, you can use yoga to improve your life. So it's really a standalone lifestyle. I'll put it that way. Time for a pick me up. So then my mom meets a guy. My mom was always very protective, did not bring guys home unless she felt good about them, and never let them stay the night. So when she found somebody that she felt comfortable with, especially after the first guy that was very abusive, she was very careful. She found a guy she really liked. We moved in with him, and he wanted to move to Colorado Springs. So Colorado Springs, that sounds pretty interesting. Yes, it was. It was very cool. It was a very cool town. I'm going to say city, small city, big town at that time anyway. When was it? 74? 1974, I think. Yes, I'm pretty sure that is. I was 9. So here we are in Colorado Springs. Guess what? My grandpa and grandma, my dad's parents, lived in Colorado Springs at that time. They're from Missouri. What are they doing in Colorado Springs? Evidently, my grandmother's sister moved there and she wanted to be close with her sister, so they moved there. So while I was there, I wanted to spend time with grandma and grandpa because I didn't get to see them very often. So I did. And then later, my mom and her boyfriend decided to split up. And then my mom decided she wanted to go back to Los Angeles. So I asked her if I could stay and live with grandma and grandpa. And she said that would be fine. And grandma and grandpa said that would be fine. Okay, so I moved in. Mom went back to Los Angeles. I'm with my grandparents. My grandmother is the organist in the church. So we went to every church meeting. That's a whole lot of church. That is a whole lot of church. Wednesday evening, Sunday morning, and Sunday evening. Like I said, that's a whole lot of church. I'm a very spiritual kid. I'm 10 now, and I'm going to church with my grandparents, and I'm very curious. So I asked my grandmother one day, how do you become a Christian? How do you do that? What are the steps? Do you have to go through an initiation? I didn't say that. I was just asking, and this is in my mind, what do you have to do to become a Christian? What is this Christianity? So she called up a pastor. I want to make sure she got this right. Called pastor. And he came over and talked to me about the ego was on the throne of the heart, and that when we get on our knees and he also talked about it, how we're all sinners and all that stuff, born in sin, and you know the rap. Anyway, so he said that if we get down on our knees and ask Jesus into our heart, forgive us of all our sins, that's the sinner's prayer, that Jesus would come in and sit on the throne of our heart. So I learned about the ego and about learning to control the ego. You don't want to try. You want to learn how to do it. You want to do it. You want to control the ego. So that was in alignment. I thought, well, let's try this. Let's see what this is all about. So I got down on my knees and said the sinner's prayer, and bingo, bango, I'm a Christian. Hallelujah. So after that, this is what is very disturbing. Grandma changed. So grandma became difficult for me to be with. All of a sudden, it was very hard, very difficult, and things weren't working out. So I wrote my mother a letter and told her, I can't, this isn't working out. I need to come back home. I need to come back to you. And she flew me out, and I was living with her and Keith and Melody at the time. We knew them. We met them. I can't remember how we met them. I think my mom probably met them, and then she took me to the Blah Blah Cafe, which, if you've read the book, No Compromise, Melody talks a lot about the Blah Blah Cafe. We went down there to see Keith. This little place is a little hole in the wall, all kinds of stuff on the walls, and very interesting stuff. So anyway, Keith and Melody had become Christians. Well, I had become a Christian, and I thought, well, why don't I contact them and see what's going on? And they came by and picked me up to go to Bible studies. They did that a couple of times, and then after that, they started sending somebody. That's kind of how they were. They sent somebody to pick me up and then take me home. So that was happening, and I did not remember this, but my mother, when I was talking to her about that time, She told me that I was telling her that she needed to dress more modest, which kind of triggered her because her mother had a Mennonite background, and if you knew anything about Mennonites, you have to be all covered up, okay? And she was very, very strict about that. You have to dress modest. And here I was, a little 10-year-old. Was I 10 or 11? Anyway, so I think it was 11. I was, because it was 76. Yes. So I was 11, and I was telling my mom she needed to dress more modest and stuff like that. And at that time, she was going through some depression. I mean, it was bad, you guys. I mean, so she was really, really struggling. Her car had broke down, and she was walking to work. She was close enough, so she was walking. She didn't have enough money to fix her car. And the apartment that she was living in did not allow children. Yay. So it was getting really difficult to take care of me and deal with the depression and all the stuff that was happening. So she asked me if I would be okay with moving out and living with somebody else. So I thought of Keith and Melody because everybody else I thought of that we knew was not a good choice. So I chose Keith and Melody. They took me in. At that time, they were taking people in. So they had people come in from the church. So the church would contact them and would say, hey, we've got this person who is trying to get off drugs and get their life together. They need to get a job, but they need a place to stay for a while. So Keith and Melody would take them in, and they would get on their feet and move on. When I moved in, there was a single mother who had a 4-year-old. They were living in the house when I moved in. And then there were people that would move in, sleep in the living room and stuff like that. And I remember 1 or 2 people in the garage. If I remember right, I had a social worker because I was really a foster child. It wasn't like, hey, can you take care of my kid for a while? No, this was definitely by the law. I had a social worker who came in and said, okay, and she looked at the house and everything and my living quarters and where I was and stuff. And she said that there could not be other people in the house unless they were related to Keith and Melody. And so everybody had to move out. The next step was to buy and rent houses in the neighborhood and then have people live there instead of in the house where I was. So then I had the room to myself. But when I first moved in, it was Cindy and her daughter Kelly, and they basically, Cindy basically took care of me. So when I got home from school, Cindy would fix me dinner and made sure I did homework and whatever I needed to do and cleaned up and went to bed on time and stuff like that. Then when everybody had to move out, I was like 12 at that time. I was in 6th grade. And I can't remember. Oh, it had to have been when I was like 13, 14. I think it was around 14 because then we moved to Texas. But Keith and Melody became legal guardians to a girl named Judy, who was at the time, I was 14, she was 16. And because Keith and Melody became legal guardians for her, she was allowed to live in the house with me. So if another foster kid came in and they were foster parents to that child, or if they adopted a child or had their own children, or say Melody's sister moved in. I don't think she had a sister. I think she was an only child, but you know what I mean. Keith had a sister. So let's say his sister moves in, right? That would be okay because they're related. So I did spend quite a few years in a room by myself, so it was pretty cool. But anyway, that is how I got to move in with Keith and Melody. So my mother had depression, her car was broken down, and her apartment was no children, had no had a rule. So then, you know, what do I do? And Keith and Melody was the perfect answer for that moment. So that's how it happened. And no trigger warnings. But the next one, I'm going to talk about rules and punishment. And so there will be, I guess, trigger warnings. That's what people say when, okay, so there's trauma, all right? But that's it. So that's how I got to be Keith and Melody Green's foster child. And at that time, they started a ministry called Last Days Ministry. So I'll leave it there. And my next video, I will talk about rules and punishment. All right. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And I will talk to you next time. I love you all. And until next time, blessed be.